Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. Have you ever seen something a younger woman smiles at an older man, and have you thought about what's going on there? Respect or admiration? Or is it something else? Something else entirely. Most men think it's easy politeness, while others may be more cynical, think it doesn't mean anything, just another. It's just a social thing, nothing to worry about. But is it possible that smile is full of drugs? Most older men understand what it means, never fully understand, because you see the men are lost in the modern world, not sure of their own worth, and yet despite the noise, the cultural landscape is always changing. Something classical, something important about how women and other people answer with strength, wisdom, and presence. A smile from a young woman to an older man isn't just about getting together, not just about money, power, or fame. It's about something more profound, to be aware of stability, of the feeling of being grounded. When someone smiles at an older man, a younger woman, his first thought might be to write it off as just being polite, a pointless act, or even a show of respect. But in reality, that smile often has a much deeper meaning than most men know. It's a subtle but a strong sign of recognition of deep down, there is something basic, a part of being human. Women. Younger women in particular are naturally tuned in to qualities that stand for stable and have experience. They are wired, whether they are aware of it or not, to strong in more ways than one strength, but also mental and emotional, and when they show intellectual strength, when run into an older man who gives off a feeling of peace and security, self-possession, it makes you feel a response that comes naturally. That response often shows up as a smile for a moment of an acknowledgement that says, "I see." There is something valuable in this. Recognition isn't always about romantic relationships, even if it's the case in some. Most of the time, it's an appreciation for having a man there who has been through the battles and remains of life, standing, a man who carries himself with. There isn't much dignity and quiet confidence in these days. A lot of young people, both young and old, are lost in doubt, and doubt themselves. Younger women who are people who are still on their own journeys can know when someone has walked, that they had a hard path ahead of them and come out. That's when the smile is stronger, of something old that happened in the past. Know-how and wisdom have always called for respect in the past. People look to elders for their knowledge. They are able to give direction, and their constant presence when things are uncertain, even in the times, despite changes in culture, that lessen the importance of older generations, of that basic instinct still there. When a younger woman smiles at an old man, she might not even fully understand. I get why she does it. It's in recognizing something without being aware of it she finds comforting and even admirable. A lot of older men don't do it, though. They know this because they've been trained to think that getting older makes being able to see that their value lessens over time. But that's not how strength comes from human nature. Strength and smarts don't go. I didn't notice that smile wasn't empty. It's a gentle reminder that stability, self-mastery, and there is still value in experience in the world, and for the man who gets it aware of this, it acts as a calm proof that he still has something important to offer. Modern society has done everything it could to persuade men over 50 that they are no longer important because of the fast rise of youth focused on culture. Constant technology changes and shifts in social dynamics have all of these things led to the idea that once a man's worth drops after a certain age. Declines, he is told in a subtle or direct way, because his time has come and gone, is out of date and should be thrown away. This message is for the next generation, reinforced by media, in the workplace culture, and even in social groups interactions that left many older men not being seen or appreciated. Though this story has nothing to do with reality, it is something that a society makes up that often puts novelty ahead of substance. Age doesn't get better, that's the truth. A man's worth, but rather makes it bigger, as long as he has made good use of his years' experience with discipline and feelings. Resilience and toughness are traits that copied overnight, and they're still there as important now as they were. Then, the trouble is that a lot of men believe the wrong idea that they are not longer needed, which made them run away from life, give up, and often lose what made them great in the first place. Strong young women who are still growing up during a time when people are ignoring. Men who are traditionally masculine still have an instinctively knowing what is important to them in a man they like: strength, not just physical power, but the kind of strength that comes from getting through hard times and becoming wise and keeping his emotions in check. A man who has made himself into someone who is skilled and has depth and insight is seen, even if society tells him not to. The problem comes up when men over 50 believe the lie that they have stopped being important when they start to see themselves through the skewed lens as a window into modern culture. They miss self-assurance that they stop carrying themselves to do something, and they start to fade into the background. This is not how things should be. Of things, this is what a system does. That hasn't given the role of having experience and being a leader. The truth is that men over 50 still play an important part to play. The world needs them, even if refuses to say that straight out, and when an aged man and younger woman smile at each other. A lot of the time because she, even in a small SS, is something that will last. The question is whether the man notices it. Women, especially younger ones, women naturally want things to be stable. Being wise and strong in a man is not a modern trend. It's a deeply ingrained part of being human that has been around for thousands of years. Values change all the time in society, and stories about basic human instincts remain mostly the same. Women are not looking for only surface-level traits, like money or fame. They want it. Something much more important: security, help, and the company of a man who is really in charge of himself and is living in a world that is often a mess. And younger women who aren't sure naturally understand the value of a man who is calm, disciplined, and selfish. There is a big difference between two men who have made it big for themselves. Time and someone who is still figuring himself out. The younger man might have energy, goals, and possibilities, but the older man, if he has grown himself right away, has something much more rare: wisdom, through the kind of experience that wisdom leads to stability, and one of the most attractive things about a man. This need for stability is not having to do with financial security. That can be a factor, but it is about mental and emotional health security that can't be faked or copied. A man who is steady and does not give up under stress, who carries, he becomes himself, with quiet confidence. Someone that others, even younger women, naturally want to be with him. Not need to show fear to prove himself or outside approval, because his very presence gives off an air of confidence and skill. A lot of people don't understand that in the world we live in now, real masculinity, being strong, smart, and responsible, is happening less and less often. Many younger men have trouble with their identities, directions, and people often lose their way in distractions and the insecurities of an older man who has been through life's storms, who has learnt to control their emotions, and self-discipline stands out because he's something solid that you can count on. Something very important in a time of the unknown, when a younger woman smiles. When looking at an older man, it's often in recognizing these without meaning to qualities that it's not always about like an attraction in a romantic way, but much more of an automatic reaction to her that makes women feel better. They know and honor men who have built, turned into something strong. The sad truth is that many older men don't see this in themselves, without realizing that the traits that they've worked on over time are still very important to society. Whether they admit it or not, one of the worst things an older man can do is giving himself time to get angry, or life will always bring defeat problems, setbacks and disappointments, and losses. But how a man deals with them challenges decide what kind of presence he has as he ages, that some men use hardship to help you grow, getting smarter, stronger, and more. Some people are tough, but others let it break them, turning inward and becoming angry, and they think their best years are behind them. This difference is very important because women, especially younger women, can tell the difference right away. There's nothing sweet about a man who has given up on life, walks around with an air of defeat, who thinks of himself as an old thing, doesn't make people respect or admired. He may have been ambitious, sure of themselves, and full of purpose. But if he goes through the world now with the weight of his regrets on his shoulders, he stops being seen. Not because of his age, but because of how he sees things. Seeing himself the way a man sees his own value often shows how the world will look at him as a man who doesn't want to be crushed by life's problems that need attention. He may have scars that are real and symbolic, but they show that he has been through a lot. He has lost something, but he still moves. Going forward, he has failed, but still keeps his head up and doesn't let his anger control what he did instead. He is still involved with life learning. Getting better and making this kind of a man gives off an air of quiet confidence. That women can't be ignored, immediately recognize this energy as the younger woman might not fully understand why she looks up to one older man and doesn't care about another. But the difference is clear. A man who has kept his life, his interest, and his sense of one person will always be seen as reason of value. It's not about acting like to be young or to seek youth. It's about holding on to a spirit that won't be put out. The real tragedy is that a lot of older men give up too soon. Trust the cultural lie they have. There is nothing else to say but the truth. The strongest thing a man can do is to stay involved, to keep going. Putting himself together and refusing to be based on his past strength and resilience and smarts don't fade with age, grow, and the world, if it respects it, whether they agree with it or not. That when a younger woman smiles at a bigger man, it's not a random or a pointless act. It's a reflection of something more instinctively that she sees in him. Most of the time, that smile is all recognition of the qualities he had, carries his presence, his trust. And still, a lot of older men, don't they see this for what it really is? Whether you think it's just being polite or think it's not important to miss a truth about people that women should know, they are drawn, whether they know it or not, to men who are strong and sure of their self. It's not about how strong you are alone, but about how a man hauls himself as an older man in the world, has lived a good life and gained wisdom and a different kind of toughness of power, one who doesn't look, not approval or confirmation, but just is. He doesn't have to prove himself. His life, years of experience speak for him with younger women. Seen this, it stands out in a big way, compared to many of their peers who are still looking for direction. Seeing that smile helps you figure out who they are, not always about attraction it can be more romantic though. Often, it's an instinctive it is a sign of respect, admiration, or curiosity. A small but important acknowledgement that this man is different because he has something strong in a world full of worry about a man who has made himself making someone strong and able doesn't not be seen. The problem comes up when men over 50 don't see themselves this way. People can see them if a man has internalized the idea that his worth has shrunk so much that he is no longer important. He might miss these subtle, completely different signals. He might think that he is invisible, even though he still commands attention. But he doesn't know this. Confidence is key for a man he doesn't doubt his worth because he knows it. When they talk, he doesn't shrink, throw them away, or say they don't matter. Instead, he knows that he has something important that is still respected and known, even in a world that doesn't always say it. That smile is a clear sign that it is proof of how strength, wisdom, and honesty work. They never really go away, they just get bigger. Changed over time, the question is whether or not a man is aware of, understand it, and handle himself. Because of this, older men often don't forget the part they still play in the conditions of the world, to think that when they get to a certain age, they should fade into the background and let the younger next generation take over. This idea is not only not true, it's deeply wisdom and experience that is harmful. It's not possible to lose resilience. They gain even more value. As time goes on, a man who has been through hard times, who has faced challenges and came out stronger, carries something that young men can't do right away: gain long-lasting knowledge. Really, the world still cares about and wants men who have made themselves into something useful. But the problem is that many of these men don't see anymore their own meaning. If they have one taken in the message that they are old, that their contributions they are no longer needed, and that their time has passed. But this is a dangerous lie. The idea of stability and leadership, same as the ones that come with age today, as they were in the past. The only difference is that men have to choose to having these traits, instead of younger women should hide in the shadows. Even though they grew up in a culture that often doesn't care about traditional masculinity, still know what strength is when they see it. They might not always be aware of it. They know it, but they naturally respect a man who is calm and knows what to do and who doesn't give way under pressure. A man who walks with ease. There will always be authority and a purpose. Out, no matter how old he is. The reason why older men feel invisible is not they're older, but because they have the women stopped acting like men. The truth is that age is not what makes a man lose his power. It's his response to a man who stays old. Interested in life and continuing to grow, lead and contribute, will always be in charge. Pay attention to the respect he gets, may not always be known loudly, but it is there when a younger woman smiles at. Of the time, it's because she feels something that lasts, something strong and stable in a world that doesn't have a lot of it. The most important question is whether older men know this about themselves. If the world doesn't decide when a man turns into, what he doesn't matter, as long as he keeps showing strength, wisdom, and because of his honesty, he is still a force to be reckoned with. Taken into account, society may change, but because people are human, the world doesn't still need strong men and people who know that this will never really forgotten.